How do you stop an explosive-laden drone traveling at 270 miles per hour with just 18 seconds to impact? This drone wasn't just fast, enough to cause catastrophic damage to a warship. Seahawk Romeo faced down that threat as it closed in on the USS Gravely. The crew understood that failure was not an option. In those heart-stopping moments, every decision counted. What actions did they take to intercept a threat that had never been neutralized this way before? It began as a routine patrol, but the reality off Yemen's coast was about to shift. Unseen threats defined every patrol in these waters, but the crew of MH-60R Seahawk Romeo faced a reality that demanded constant vigilance. The Red Sea, especially near Yemen's coast, had become a proving ground for asymmetric warfare. Houthi forces operated just beyond the horizon, launching attacks with drones, missiles, and explosive boats. For Romeo's crew, the day's mission was standard, but the risk was anything but routine. Their first warning came as the GAU-21 radar swept the sector. Engineered to detect small, fast-moving objects in a cluttered environment, the radar displayed a faint, low-speed contact, an anomaly that immediately drew the tactical operator's attention. The speed and profile didn't fit a commercial aircraft or a bird. The crew's experience told them to be cautious, but the data pointed to something more deliberate. They brought all sensors online. Sun glare atop the waves blinded the FLIR's infrared sensors, hiding any heat signature. It was a familiar challenge. The morning sun often rendered thermal optics unreliable, scattering reflections and masking potential threats. Still, the crew persisted, searching for confirmation. Moments later, a faint heat trail emerged on the display. Visual confirmed as a Samad-3, the Iranian-origin Houthi drone, packing a 66-pound warhead. The threat was now unmistakable. The Samad-3 was a known quantity in the region. Powered by a small turbojet, it was designed for long-range strikes and low-altitude flight, making detection difficult and interception urgent. Its cost was low, but its impact could be catastrophic. The warhead beneath its fuselage was enough to cripple or destroy a Navy destroyer. The USS Gravely, operating as part of a carrier strike group, was now the intended target. The drone's approach was direct and fast, 270 miles per hour, closing the distance with every second. The crew of Romeo recognized the urgency. Defensive missiles aboard the Gravely were optimized for larger, higher-flying threats. Against a small, agile drone at low altitude, their effectiveness dropped. Romeo was the last line of defense. Inside the helicopter, the tactical operator switched the radar from surface mode to air-to-air, optimizing tracking for the incoming drone. The crew coordinated rapidly. Pilot, tactical operator, and gunner all understood their roles. The GAU-21 heavy machine gun, mounted in the door, was now their primary tool. With a firing rate of 1,100 rounds per minute and effective range over a mile, it could bring down the drone, but only if the gunner's aim was precise. The crew transitioned from identification to engagement. The Samad-3's trajectory was steady, descending as it approached the Gravely. Every detail mattered: angle of approach, wind conditions, the drone's altitude and speed. The gunner prepared for a moving target, knowing a single miscalculation could allow the drone to reach its mark. The pressure was immediate and absolute. Romeo itself was exposed. Flying at low altitude to intercept, it risked becoming a target for enemy fire from the coast or from other threats in the area. The crew had to balance aggression with caution, maintaining enough distance to avoid ground-based weapons while closing in for a clear shot. The tactical challenge was clear. The Samad-3 was small, fast, and flying low, difficult for radar and thermal optics to track, and even harder to hit with a machine gun from a moving helicopter. But the crew's training and coordination allowed them to adapt. Every second counted. The operator called adjustments, the pilot held position, and the gunner tracked the target through the door's narrow field of fire. The realization set in. This was a first for the US Navy. No helicopter had yet shot down a drone with machine gun fire in combat. The stakes were high, and the crew's actions would set a precedent. The Gravely's survival depended on their ability to execute under pressure. Now, only moments remained before impact. The drone was nearly within striking range of the destroyer. The crew of Romeo had to act, fast, precise, and without hesitation. 18 seconds. That was all the time the crew of Romeo had to intercept the Samad-3 before it reached the USS Gravely. The drone, travelling at 270 miles per hour and armed with a 66-pound warhead, had already breached the outer defences. In this window, every action and decision was compressed into a test of training and composure. The GAU-21, mounted on Romeo's open door, was their only viable weapon for the job. The .50 caliber machine gun, capable of rolling out rounds at over 1,100 RPM with a mile-plus reach, was designed for reliability and stopping power. But the challenge wasn't just about firepower. The gunner faced the task of hitting a small, fast-moving target skimming just above the water, a scenario that left little room for error. The Samad-3's design favoured low altitude and minimal radar signature, making it difficult to track and even harder to intercept with conventional missile systems. The crew's focus narrowed to the single objective: prevent the drone from reaching the destroyer. The gunner lined up the first shot, tracking the drone's erratic movement as it hugged the surface. The trigger squeezed, and the GAU-21 delivered a sharp burst. The rounds missed, splashing harmlessly into the sea. In that instant, the pressure intensified. Knuckles white, breath held. There would be no second chance if the next burst failed. The pilot and tactical operator adjusted immediately. Romeo shifted position, dropping lower and angling for a cleaner line of fire. The gunner recalibrated, compensating for the drone's evasive path. Another burst erupted from the GAU-21. This time, the impact was immediate and unmistakable. The .50 caliber rounds tore into the Samad-3's fuselage and left wing. The drone wobbled, its left wing sheared off, and it began to tumble out of control. Even as the Samad-3 spiraled downward, the crew knew the threat was not yet neutralized. A third, deliberate burst from the GAU-21 followed, directed at the crippled drone. The final round shattered what remained of its lightweight frame, sending debris into the sea. With that final salvo, Romeo became the first US Navy helicopter to down an aerial threat on machine gun fire alone. The achievement was historic, but the crew's focus remained on the mission. The GAU-21, a weapon engineered for reliability and rapid response, had proven its worth in a scenario where seconds and precision defined the outcome. The destroyer below remained untouched, and the drone's warhead never reached its mark. Inside Romeo, the crew exchanged brief acknowledgements, aware of what they had just accomplished. Training and discipline had carried them through a scenario that left no margin for error. The gravity of the moment was clear, but there was no time to dwell on it. The situation in the Red Sea remained volatile. As the debris from the Samad-3 settled into the waves, Romeo's sensors and crew remained alert. The air was thick with tension. Success in one engagement did not guarantee safety in the next. The environment demanded constant vigilance, and the crew's attention shifted instinctively to the next challenge. The Seahawk's victory was measured in seconds, but the threat landscape was far from static. Their actions had secured the Gravely for now, but the mission was not over. No sooner was the drone downed than a missile launch plume appeared to port. The Seahawk's onboard warning systems immediately flagged the threat. A MANPADS launched from the Yemeni coastline, its trajectory unmistakable, and its speed calculated at Mach 2.2, over 2,500 feet per second. The crew had less than 8 seconds to respond before impact. The pilot reacted instantly, banking hard to the right and pushing the helicopter into a rapid, steep descent. The airframe shuddered as aerodynamic forces pressed against its structure, every control input calculated to disrupt the missile's guidance. These maneuvers were designed to break the missile's lock, forcing its seek ahead to recalibrate mid-flight and buying the crew a few critical moments. In parallel, the co-pilot's hand moved to the AEM-47 countermeasure panel. Flares were deployed, burning at over 2,000 degrees Celsius, their intense heat signature intended to outshine the Seahawk's own exhaust. Flares bloomed as the Seahawk whipped right and down, every system working in sync, every action coordinated under extreme pressure. Inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The gunner and tactical operator maintained visual scans for additional threats, while the pilot's hands worked the controls with precision. The missile, designed to home in on the hottest target available, adjusted its trajectory in response to the helicopter's sudden movements and the new thermal signatures in its path. In Yemen's littoral zones, MANPADS have ambushed helicopters with alarming frequency, exploiting the vulnerability of low-flying aircraft in contested airspace. The crew's training and experience were being tested in real time. The Seahawk's electronic warfare suite, the ANALQ-210, had already played a crucial role. While engaging the drone, it detected unusual S-band emissions, signals often associated with drone control uplinks or portable air defense systems. This early warning elevated the crew's alert level, allowing them to anticipate a possible secondary attack from the shoreline. The system's silent monitoring of the radio spectrum gave Romeo an edge, turning seconds of forewarning into decisive action. As the missile closed to its terminal phase, the crew's coordinated response reached its peak. The helicopter's evasive maneuver kept it moving unpredictably, while the flares provided a series of competing heat sources. The missile's seek ahead, overwhelmed by the sudden explosion of thermal energy, shifted its lock. It veered away from the Seahawk, tracking one of the burning flares instead. A violent detonation followed, the missile exploding harmlessly in mid-air behind the helicopter. The Seahawk rocked from the shockwave, but the aircraft itself remained intact. There was no celebration, only a brief exhale of relief and a rapid return to operational focus. The crew understood that this was not an isolated incident. In this region, Houthi forces have repeatedly used low-cost, mobile weapons to threaten advanced aircraft. Each encounter is a test of both technology and human decision-making, where the margin for error is measured in split seconds. The episode highlighted the importance of layered defense, early warning from the electronic warfare suite, rapid evasive maneuvering, and the timely deployment of countermeasures. It also underscored the persistent threat environment faced by US and Allied aircraft operating near Yemen, where each sortie carries the risk of sudden, lethal engagement from the ground. As the smoke cleared, Romeo's radar lit up one more ominous blip. The crew's attention shifted immediately, recognizing that in this battle space, each resolved threat could be the prelude to a new and more complex challenge. The strategic game at play in the Red Sea is defined by asymmetric warfare, where the Houthis use inexpensive, adaptable tactics to challenge the US Navy's advanced capabilities. This approach is not about matching firepower or technology directly. Instead, it relies on leveraging low-cost weapons and unpredictable attacks to wear down a technologically superior force over time. The Samad-3 drone, costing only a few $1,000s, forces a response that can require hundreds of thousands in missiles and millions in surveillance and patrols. This cost disparity is central to the Houthi strategy. Inflict damage and force the US to expend significant resources, shifting the financial and operational burden onto the defender. Every engagement highlights this imbalance. The Navy must deploy advanced radars, maintain round-the-clock surveillance, and keep ships and aircraft on high alert to counter threats that are cheap, mobile, and easily replaced. The constant need for readiness ties up assets and personnel, stretching resources thin across a broad area of operations. For every Samad-3 launched, the US might respond with a missile costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, or commit helicopters and destroyers to patrols that run into the millions. The cost of defending against these threats quickly outpaces the expense required to mount them. Small boats near shore add another layer of complexity. These vessels can ferry MANPADS or serve as explosive craft, evading detection by blending in with civilian maritime traffic or exploiting the limitations of large ship radars. When Romeo detected suspicious watercraft near the missile launch site, the crew relayed the information to USS Gravely in real time. This rapid coordination is essential for defense, but it comes at a cost. Hours of manpower, fuel, and operational wear, all expended to counter a threat that can disappear and re-emerge with little warning. The Houthis' use of mobile platforms ensures that the US Navy must remain constantly vigilant, allocating significant assets to track and respond to threats that are both elusive and persistent. The financial toll of this dynamic is deliberate. The Houthis war of attrition is designed to exhaust US resources, forcing the Navy to spend heavily in order to protect its ships and crews. Each drone, missile, or explosive boat that is launched compels a defensive reaction, sometimes involving advanced countermeasures, sometimes demanding the deployment of manned aircraft like the Seahawk. The cost of these responses accumulates rapidly, creating an economic imbalance that favors the attacker. The volume of low-cost attacks stretches defensive technology and personnel, making it difficult to sustain operations over the long term without incurring significant financial strain. Mobile missile platforms amplify the challenge. Small watercraft equipped with launchers can operate independently, moving through busy shipping lanes and coastal waters with little risk of detection. Unlike fixed launch sites, these mobile platforms can reposition quickly, striking from unexpected locations and complicating the Navy's efforts to predict and counter attacks. The absence of centralized bases makes it nearly impossible to eliminate the threat entirely. Instead, each new engagement becomes part of a continuous cycle, with the Navy forced to commit resources again and again to defend against small, shifting targets. The Seahawk's response to these threats, defending its perimeter and relaying critical information to the Gravely, demonstrates the Navy's ability to adapt tactically. However, the broader strategic challenge remains. Each successful interception or evasion is a temporary victory, but the underlying financial and operational pressures persist. The cost per engagement model is unsustainable if the pattern continues unchecked. The US must invest in new strategies and technologies that can counter low-cost, high-impact threats without draining resources at an unsustainable rate. The answer shapes not only the outcome of this conflict, but the future of modern military operations. The events off Yemen's coast are a case study in the evolving nature of warfare, where tactical success is inseparable from the larger strategic and economic realities facing advanced militaries today. Romeo's crew won a tactical first, downing a Samad-3 with only a .50 caliber gun, then dodging a MANPADS. Their actions demonstrated precision, coordination, and the ability to adapt under extreme pressure. These successes, however, highlight a deeper issue. Cheap drones and missiles force expensive countermeasures. While the Seahawk's crew achieved an operational milestone, the broader contest remains defined by endurance. Precision under pressure showcased US capability, but cost exchange rates warn that endurance, not triumph, defines this conflict. If you found this breakdown revealing, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into modern aerial warfare.